Hello, hello again. How are you? Wasn't the last session awesome with City Shakti? I've grounded myself and I'm back now for this new delicious human. This is a person whom I am very grateful to say is a very dear friend of mine, Christina Gerakiteys. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you, AJ. And the feeling is absolutely reciprocated. And what an amazing morning it's been. I've tuned into just about every session this morning, and wow, the energy is coming through loud and clear. It's beautiful. Well done.
Great to hear. I know the summit has been so jam-packed over the 3 days, but this morning has been super buzzy, and we're really excited. You're our second last speaker for the day, so we're really proud and honoured to have you. Christina is the co-CEO of Singularity University. She's an innovator, a creator, a musician, someone who has done so many things, a teacher, a trainer, a lover, not a fighter. That's what I would say about this wonderful woman here in front of you. And she's a great mentor and supporter of new people, other people, people coming up after her. She is definitely someone who always looks behind her and gives a hand up. And that's something that I've always really respected about you, Christina. So welcome to the Superhuman Summit, the Energy Series. And you are going to talk to us about a moonshot mindset and the thought that where energy or where thought flows, energy goes. So do tell us, what is this idea of a moonshot?
So the moonshot terminology actually came from JFK when he gave his famous speech, and he said, we're going to put a man on the moon. And I don't know if you've seen the clip, but if you actually have a close look at the people's reaction around him, they kind of go, oh, are we? How are we going to do that? Because there'd been space, there'd been travel into space, and he threw the challenge out. And so the definition of a moonshot is something that you imagine can happen, but you don't know how you're going to do it yet. And I think in these exponential times and with the converging technologies, and we've been talking about the energies coming together and the mindsets coming together and the diversity of people in a room coming together for quite some time. And when you bring the diversity of thinking, of mind, heart, soul into a room, and you marry that with the convergence of all the technologies that are now available to us, anything is possible. I mean, you know, JFK talked about going to the moon, and now Elon Musk, etc., are talking about colonizing Mars, and we've actually landed a ship on Mars. So for me, it's all about, if we can do those kind of things, imagine what we can do here as well on planet Earth. And we've just seen the most remarkable example of human energy coming together in coronavirus. So the fact that all the scientists and everybody used tech to bring all their minds together, focus their energy on creating a vaccine. And whether you have the vaccine or not, or whatever, is a totally different discussion topic. But the energy focus that was on that, and we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different types of vaccines, and that's where we say, moonshot it. We're going to create a solution to this problem and bring all those different energies together and look at the result. You know, so whether you think the result's perfect or not is not here for debate. Whether you want the vaccination or not, but it's just an example of how that collective energy, where that energy goes, is where the action follows. So very, very passionate about that, and I would like to challenge everybody over the coming days to say to themselves, when they get up in the morning, go, I'm going to have the most magnificent day, and just keep that positive energy flow up based on all the things they've learned throughout the summit, because that's, you know, that has been the general theme. Recognize where things are coming from, harness the best energy you can. If there's been some trauma, etc., because I found those sessions fascinating this morning, acknowledge that. But, you know, go out with this positive mindset and see how the energy flows through the day, and then don't do it for a whole day. But maybe for half an hour, go, you know, put yourself in that lower energy state and see what happens when you place yourself in a lower energy state. It's quite remarkable.
And you know what, when I heard you talking about moonshot and also having some of these habits, like I got a visual of someone pulling a bow and arrow back, you know, and then shooting it at the moon, and that whole, you don't know how it's going to fly, and it might be a bit wobbly on the way, but just pull back and shoot it anyway. And so I want to challenge people to go, what's my moonshot idea? And every day to get up and not just go, I'm going to have a magnificent day, but go, what's my moonshot idea today? Because the creativity comes from building that muscle, doesn't it? Of every day going, oh, what's a moonshot idea? What's a creative way of looking at that? Because our 60 or 70,000 thoughts a day tend to be a repeat of yesterday. But if we're stretching and challenging ourselves like you have, Christina, to go, what's my moonshot idea today? I really think people will be surprised what they come up with.
They will indeed. And I have another favourite saying, and we're not quite sure where it came from. It's been attributed to everybody from Seth Godin to Simon Sinek to Aristotle.
Some
but
smart
person. Some very intelligent person. Ideation without execution is hallucination. So we initially have that idea. We need to have the moonshot. We need to have that. And, you know, probably many, many years ago when we were running workshops, AJ, we would refer to it as pie in the sky, or, you know, wherever pigs fly. Moonshot thinking is the same kind of, and I'm actually thinking maybe it's not quite big enough anymore because we have gone to Mars. So maybe we need to come up with a brand new, there you go, there's another challenge. Let's have some words in the chat. What can we call the new idea of moonshot thinking, since we've gone beyond the moon now, and you know, we're landing craft on Mars?
Pluto shot, not a Pluto pop, a Pluto shot.
Well, they say that we're going to be
more beyond
masters of the galaxy, you know, way beyond that. Maybe it's intergalactical arrow or something like that. I'm not sure. Actually, I really like that, intergalactical arrow. Let's work on that. But there is so I've actually got a little presentation ready that shows some of the remarkable things that are happening already in the world. And I find that if you're aware of what is happening in the world, it's easier for you to go, oh, well, if that's happening, why can't this happen? So it's that expansive thinking that is really required when you go into a moonshot state. So what if we just flip into this presentation?
Cue up that. Yeah, and it's much like, isn't it, is it the 10-minute mile? You know, like that whole idea of once one person broke the barrier of how long that would take, then several people straight after did it. But it takes one person to be courageous enough. And I talked yesterday about moving from level 200 into above, from contractive frequencies to expansive ones. Takes courage. Like the switch between the two is courage. And so having a moonshot idea is a courageous thing. Let's jump into what people are doing around the world. Yeah.
So you can see my screen because I can no longer see you. But you've got 6 steps to moonshots.
Not yet. No.
Okay. Let's just try that one more time because I think you should have it. If not, I'll walk you through it. And we'll.
You brought it on last time.
Yeah, I thought I had exactly the same process. I haven't used this program before, so my apologies.
Okay. You can't see it yet.
All right, the share button's gone off. So anyway, let's just walk through it because we can. So the very first step to moonshot thinking is to actually be able to have that huge idea. So you're going to have to go with me. Let your imagination fly a little bit right now, because what I want to do is let you know some of those things that are happening around the world. Right. So imagine this. You've got a young woman with cerebral palsy. You have an amazing doctor by the name of Dr. Jordan Nguyen, who is an engineer, he's an engineer. And Jessica's dream is to play a musical instrument, okay? So Jordan Nguyen goes, how do I use technology in order to make this happen? So the idea has been planted. The moonshot is that this woman with cerebral palsy wants to play an instrument. He designs a program on an iPad that allows Jessica to play the iPad with her eyes, create the music with her eyes through the iPad. She has now recorded a song with Steve Bowlby from Noiseworks. It is a beautiful song. It's on YouTube. Please go and have a look at it. It's quite remarkable. That's one example of what's actually going on out there at the moment. And another beautiful example of what's happening out there, and has been for some time. This isn't a new idea. So we're doing some work, and I say we're because there's some work happening actually in the Hunter Valley as well at HMRI. And I know you've had a lot to do with HMRI, AJ. there's some work been done also in America, and it's been brought again by Jordan Nguyen into the Hunter Valley. And there's a beautiful gentleman who volunteered his time, effort by the name of Angus at Cooks Hill Surf Club, who had the misfortune of being knocked off his push bike as he was coming down Memorial Drive and suffered. He's now paraplegic. Anyway, what they're doing with augmented reality and virtual reality in the US, Jordan's doing with Angus. So what they've actually what's happened in the US at the moment is that they've immersed quadriplegics and paraplegics into augmented reality, virtual reality, where they're walking, moving. Their moonshot, if you like, is to be able to walk again or to move again. So what's happened after a period of 3 months, with the advantage of an exoskeleton suit, which is a suit that you put the person into, and then it triggers movement and it measures movement. So after 3 months immersion in augmented reality and virtual reality, there's voluntary movement in the muscles. What they didn't expect was after 6 to 7 months of immersion in augmented reality, virtual reality, that the muscle movement was happening outside of the exoskeleton suit.
Wow.
It's like, can you just imagine if that was you or your partner, your mother, your father, whatever, how remarkable that is. And that's one of the most goosebumpy examples of moonshot thinking I can give you. So the whole idea is to dream it and then start collecting the minds that can put it together. And if you have a look around you, there's so much technology out there right now. How do we use this tech for good? So at Singularity U, we say that we exist at the intersection of the virtues of humanity with the value of technology. So how do we bring the values of humanity, put humans first, and then back that up with the technology that's happening? So you look around you, you are insatiably curious. All you want to do is learn. You want to bring different aspects from different fields into your own field. And you get out there and you have a think about what effect it is that you personally want to have on the world. And so for me, one of the biggest things for me is education. Take education to every corner of the universe, because if we can educate people, we can lift people. We can lift a lot of people in third world countries out of poverty. And it's that old adage of, do you give a man a fish, or do you give him a fishing rod and teach him how to fish? So for me, technology is quite remarkable in that field. And if I refer back to Elon Musk, again, Elon's launching satellites into space. Now, we also have to be very, very careful that we don't pollute space, that we don't make the same mistake in our beautiful universe that we've done on planet Earth. Yeah. So we've got to be very careful with that. However, what the object is to try and have connectivity, internet connectivity, all the way around the planet. If that happens, we can get education to every single child and every single adult, because it's not only children that learn, it's adults as well that have an insatiable curiosity. And let's face it, if you're not a lifelong learner these days, forget it, because you really need to keep up. So that in itself is a moonshot idea. And what's happened with that idea, there's an amazing organisation called XPRIZE. So these things are happening all over the world. You just got to go out there and you've got to search for them, know about them, and then share them with other people so that they can then share them with other people as well. But XPRIZE had a prize. They had a $10 million prize, and they said, if you can teach children in a third world country basic literacy, basic numeracy in an 18-month period without adult intervention, just using tech, you need to create an app that's going to do that, you win the $10 million prize. So what happened at the end of the 18 months, and the only intervention on this particular village was there was an adult who would charge via solar power, charge the devices that Bill Gates donated. So, if you have a look at, there's all these people working together to make this happen. So the devices were donated. There was an elderly person in the village that was taught how to charge them. Apart from that, the children were given the devices and they had to fend for themselves through this app. Those children learnt basic literacy, basic numeracy in under 18 months. So, again, if you think it and you act on it, you can do it, especially if you use all the resources that are happening out there. The other thing that we also need to remember is that we need to have a very flexible mindset. So if you have a very narrow mindset, you're not going to be able to see and imagine those things. So I'm going to a little confession here, and I think I may have shared it on your last summit as well. I'm a vegetarian. My diet has been very coloured, full of, you know, vegetables and fruits and, you know, chocolate over the years. Very rainbowy, especially with that dark chocolate.
Brown is part of the rainbow. That's okay.
So what happened was I was at a conference in San Francisco, and I was presented with cellular agriculture, and I went, I can't eat that. I'm a vegetarian. Anyway, I came home and I was telling my family about this experience. My daughter said, well, why didn't you eat it? And I went, I'm a vegetarian. And she said, yeah, but all the reasons that you're a vegetarian, you know, no animal was killed. Agriculture, well, yeah, the cellular agriculture, you know, the water that was saved, the land that was not used, the harm that didn't come to the animals was just incredible. The carbon emissions, you know, transporting the meat to city centres, etc. None of that happened. She said, why didn't you try it? It was grown in the lab. So my mindset clearly, and, you know, I've been working in the innovation space before it was a thing, you know, before it was a bit trendy, and you had to kind of go, hello, innovation, innovation, innovation. Even so, my mindset was quite closed. So I've learnt very carefully to question if I even feel like I'm blocking an idea off, and there's the energy. So if I'm blocking that energy for all the numerous reasons all your presenters have said over the last 2.5 days, then I need to be very mindful of why I'm blocking that energy. And as we know, a lot of that comes from fear. So what am I fearing in this? Am I fearing that I'm not in control? Am I fearing that I don't know enough? Am I fearing that I'm the dummy in the room? Like, what is that fear that's happening? So I actually had to look at why my mindset was closed from that. So you need an open mindset. You need to be absolutely curious. And at the basis of everything that we do, I believe, it has to benefit humanity. So I have a favourite word that I made up, and it's Humanivate. So everything we do in innovation needs to have the human first. So when we're humanivating, we need to consider humanity first and think about how we're going to improve humanity through the ideas that we're going to have. So there's lots of talk. So a lot of our business is around technology, and we support a lot of startups. And we need to be very mindful that there's a lot of fear associated with the use of technology. You know, I was having a conversation the other day with someone, and they said, yeah, but, you know, all these hackers and people have hacked into this and hacked into that. And I go, yes, but think about how technology has also been used to prevent people from hacking in. So, you know, we hear 1 or 2 stories about somebody that's hacked in. We don't hear all the stories about where that harm was actually stopped. And then if you think about the stories like Jessica Irwin, for example, and playing that music, having the freedom to play that music with her eyes, which fulfills a lifelong dream, working with people in exoskeleton suits to reinstate movement in their bodies in some way. There's a wonderful young startup, Bindi Maps, and what they're doing, they're actually doing some work in the Hunter Valley soon as well, and they've done multiple jobs in shopping centres and at universities throughout New South Wales. But they have made it so. The first time I heard Mladen speak, he said, "How would you feel if you're in a shopping centre and you couldn't go to the bathroom on your own?" And I went, "Whoa." And this is the issue that a lot of sight-impaired people have. So their moonshot was to create a system where somebody who had a sight disability could actually maneuver their way around anywhere on their own and have that independence. So they've developed a sensor system on an app, and you can actually put the app on and walk anywhere within the shopping centre. It will tell you where to go, where there's less traffic, to a direction. So these are all moonshot ideas that people have turned into reality using the technology that's available around us now. So,
and just coming back to your Humanivate word as well, this concept, because we are talking about energy. There's great energy in technology, but it's not enabled until us as humans use it and do something with it. So we imbue our energy into these inanimate objects to get them to do things. And it reminds me a lot, your term Humanivate, of the yogic term or Sanskrit term ahimsa, which means do no harm. It's that kind of, it needs to be good for you, good for me, good for the planet, good for the universe. So I'm hearing what you're saying is that innovation is not at the cost of humans. It's not about, crawling over bodies to get something done. It's about how can we harness the power of this amazing technology and use it for the betterment of all. These are awesome examples. I just want to remind everyone watching as well, because we've got people watching in Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you've got questions for Christina, because she's like a font of knowledge, make sure you pop them in the chat box so that we can interact with her or ask questions if you've got any along the way.
Thank you. So everything has, and let's face it, there's lots of things that we can address globally. There's the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. We talk about the global grand challenges. I know you and Michelle have done a lot of work with homelessness, domestic violence. There are way too many issues that we need to address. But the other thing that I'd love to stress with Moonshots as well is that it's not only finding something that's going to heal at this end. Let's also use the information that we can garner and the data that we can collect to figure out why things are happening at the other end. Let's catch humanity before we have to fix a problem that's occurred. And we can do it. We know we can do it. We just have to have the will to do it, which also brings me to another conversation that we had around energy a couple of days ago. And it was all about, why is it so easy? And I know this has come up and you've addressed a lot of this over the last 2.5 days, but why is it so easy for us to go, oh, that'll never happen, or that's going to go pear-shaped, or that's going to be rotten, as opposed to, this is going to work, this is amazing, this is wonderful, let's do it. And people go, oh, that's really cornball, Why? When does it become cornball? And why isn't it, when it's really negative, why isn't it ridiculous? So with that energy flow again, there's this feel, and it's fantastic that you're running this summit, because the more energy vibrations we can lift, the more collectively around the globe and around the universe we can collectively lift that energy into optimism. So people go, oh, you're just too optimistic. And you go, well, you're just too pessimistic, or whatever the opposite is. But why is it easier? Why is it easier to sink into that negative energy than it is to draw ourselves up and believe in that positive optimism? So there is a change, and there's not many people that will tell you that they don't notice the rate of change in the world at the moment and how things are, speeding up. But I also find that there's an exponential rise in consciousness in summits like yours, in conversations like you've encouraged over the last 3 days or 2.5 days so far. And there's a reason why there's an increase in yoga, in meditation, in mindfulness, and all the other modalities, that help us live moment to moment. Because if we were to actually lose ourselves in the pace of change and in the pace of the great learnings, there's no way that we can know everything on the planet. Or is a way. Maybe Neuralink has got something to do with it. I'm not sure.
Wasn't it the baby fish that you put in your ear?
Yeah. But then we also talk about, you and I have had conversations about people's unique gifts, and that's why we all have unique gifts, so that we all can contribute to the greater good and to the greater consciousness. So, but I do believe there's a reason why there's a rise in yoga, meditation, mindfulness, etc., because it allows us to live in the moment. And if we live in each moment and recognize what's happening in each moment, then we can actually face this future where it is moving faster, but you have the ability to slow it down. I'm sure that you've done the exercise, or the viewer, I know you have, that viewers have done the exercise where you kind of go, I'm just going to float through today, and all of a sudden you're floating through the day. If you wake up going, oh my God, I haven't got enough things to, I haven't got enough time, and how am I going to do this? And I'm going to race through the day. Then that is exactly what's going to happen. You're going to absolutely race through the day. You'll trip over yourself. And, and I remember doing an exercise and it was quite cruel, and I feel guilty every time I talk about it, but it really illustrates a point. So I had a group of students, and I went up to this student and I said, are you okay? And he went, yeah. And I said, well, you look a bit tired. And he went, oh yeah, I am a bit. He said, and I went for a run this morning. Maybe I'm tired from the run. But it was like one sentence that I said to him managed to alter and actually really pierce his subconscious, so that he started thinking that and I'm sure that people have had that happen to them. If someone says to you, are you well? You don't look you don't look well. And someone said that to me once, and I went into the mirror and I had a look, and I went, oh, maybe I'm coming down with
oh no.
Yeah. So, and that's the other thing about where that energy flows. So if I allow that to penetrate and I go with that energy flow, then that's what's going to happen. If I actually sit there and go, I can't solve this problem, I don't know how to get a man to the moon, I don't know how to put a spaceship on Mars, I don't know how to humanivate, then we're not going to do it. So it's very, very important that we surround ourselves with positive talk, and that we surround ourselves with like-minded people, and that we allow the energy to flow where we want it. And that's not to say that it's always perfect, because one of my other favourite conversations, I've had lots of favourite conversations, was I was very fortunate to be in the room with the Dalai Lama, and someone said to him, just how do you be happy all the time? And he said, why would you want to be happy all the time? He said, because if you don't know sadness, you can't express or experience happiness. He said, aim for contentment, because you can be in a content state and be happy. You can be in a content state and be not so happy. But it's not the happiness permanent factor that we want. It's the whole, that's why we're body, heart, mind, soul. That's why we're beings having this physical experience. So one of your speakers this morning was talking about, with Michelle, about how we're having simultaneous lives, and that's a whole other conversation about the time warp and the time travel and entering different spaces, and it puts a whole new meaning on sliding doors, on the movie Sliding Doors. But wherever we take that energy is where we're going to go. And we don't have to do huge things. We can build apps that allow Jessica to play a synthesizer with her eyes, or we can take it forward in our daily steps, our daily lives, and be kind and beautiful to people and transmit that lovely energy. And that is up to us. So energy is a huge topic, which you have covered amazingly over the last few days.
I think this comes back to what has been a theme over the 3 days really strongly, and Michelle and I kind of wrapped up on yesterday, and that's personal responsibility, and the fact that our energy, is always emanating and affects people around us. And so when we have moonshot ideas, or we believe in ourselves, or we're doing our practices to polish our vessel and to keep ourselves above the line as much as possible, that cannot help but radiate out to others. So maybe your Humanivate is not always, what can I do for society, but how do I stay in a high vibration? Because when I do, then I'm more likely to see the expansive opportunities to meet people with compassion and empathy. Speaking of which, what are some of the practical ways people could look at their world and go, how do I humanivate? Like, I'm just a little small business, or I'm just an employee somewhere, or I'm just a mum. Maybe there are people thinking those sorts of things out there. What would you say to them about how they could bring a bit of this moonshot thinking and thinking about where thought flows, energy goes into their day-to-day life, without it just being, the creation of something like we heard about the lady that can create music now?
Yeah. So for me, it's all about finding where your passion is and finding that unique gift, and being very active in that area. So if I'm very passionate about education, and my passion for education crosses everybody from executives to startups to students, to how do we share as much knowledge as we can. There are other people that are just as passionate around creating climate activation, and so here's the thing as well. There are 17 sustainable development goals. Have a look at all of them. They've all got sub-targets and sub-goals. Find the ones that you're passionate about, and then pick one that you really want to make a difference in. Pick the one that you want to make your mark in. And when we say make your mark, it doesn't have to be a huge mark. It doesn't have to be a gigantic footprint that covers the whole entire planet. It can be a ripple that you create in your society, in your family, that then trickles out. So, for example, we've been recycling forever in my house. I can't remember a time when we weren't actually recycling, before we had the recycling bins and all that, all that kind of thing. So for me, the things that we keep learning about that, and it's the pick up, when we go walking some mornings and we're picking up the plastics off the beach. It's having those tiny little ripple effects as well. But you pick something. Everybody has an idea of where their passions are, and it often happens that this is where we go into our fields of speciality. How do you know what you want to study? How do you know where you want to go? And this is how that can happen. So you find your area of absolute interest, and even if you have to read a lot, even if you read multiple books, if you read multiple programs, if you watch documentaries, etc., and then you find that one thing that you are totally passionate about, and then find some ideas that you have about how you want to change it. And then so you write down all these ideas, and then you start going, okay, well, this is the huge action that I want to happen, around the globe, in my house, wherever that is. Step it out. Just go, okay, in order for this to happen, what are the 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 steps that I need to take in order for that to happen? So for me, it was let's create an education organization that will have an effect on everybody from executives to startups to school kids, and then figure out how we're going to do it. So what I did was seek experiences that led me to Singularity U, for example. So that's how we do it. That's how I did it. And it's very possible that you can do this yourself. So what you do is you find, we are often talking about find your why and what it is. So find your why, find the passion. There's multiple courses, there's multiple suggestions around how you do that. But, I would really suggest that you start with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Find a cause, find a passion, find something out there that you're not happy about, and then have the courage to make a difference. Have the courage to take steps to make a difference. And the best way to do that is to step them out one by one by one by one. So write down what that plan might be. Write down what you might be, where you might want to be in 12 months' time. Write down the first steps that you're going to take next week. So let's find a cause and let's moonshot what we want the end result to be. How do we want things to end up right at the very end of that? What do we want the end result to be? So, okay, let's go. We want world peace. Okay, I want world peace. I want unconditional love throughout the whole entire planet. People go, that's really corny. I go, well, if we can say that there's war all around the planet, we're going to destroy ourselves. Why can't we say that we're also aiming for unconditional love around the planet? What do I need to do in order to be that unconditional love, to start talking? So there's one thing. We're talking about unconditional love right now. How is it to practice unconditional love? Well, my friends, it is really difficult to practice unconditional love because of the way that we've been brought up, because of, you heard this morning, if you were listening to the presenters this morning, about our fight or flight mechanisms. And sometimes it's really hard to practice unconditional love when you are in a fight or flight session. So practice unconditional love at home. Practice it with yourself. So there's a lot of talk at the moment about, how we need to be more mindful of selves. Our energy needs to be more. We need to work on our own energy flow before we can help other people's energy flows. And I know a lot of the speakers this morning, for example, were talking about their moment of realization. And I think the more that you can find out about energy, the more you can find out about spirituality, the more that you find out and come to accept who you are. And I remember, one of my moments of revelation was when, I kept hearing this, I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm enough. Every second meme on my Instagram was, I am enough. And I'm going, if I hear that meme one more time, I am enough, I'm going to go off Instagram or whatever. Anyway, something happened and I went, oh my God, I understand what I am enough means. I don't have to be any more than I am. I really am enough. And I actually cried the next time I read a meme that used those words, because when you find that you are enough, when you find that you can find that peace within yourself, and it comes through a variety of practices. And there's many, many practices out there, and you've heard a lot of them. You've heard about body work, and you've heard about meditation, you've heard about yoga, you've heard about all these things over the last few days. And there's lots of people out there that want to help with that energy flow. There's people that want to help you free up your energy. There's people that want to help you be aware of your energy. And if the people that are watching this summit aren't out there talking about energy flow, then people that don't know about energy flow aren't going to find out about it. And they're not going to start becoming curious, and they're not going to start having the conversations. So the thing is to share and to be brave and to be courageous and to be able to have conversations that maybe 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago you wouldn't have had because you weren't courageous enough to have those conversations. So one of the first things is to have those conversations. In order to find what you're passionate about, you need to do some exploring, and you also need to come to an understanding of where you sit in humanity. So it's very easy, particularly for people in Western countries, and let's face it, in Australia we are particularly lucky, especially we've been very lucky over the 18 months, and I wonder how our collective energy affects that. So how does our collective energy, where our collective energies flow, whether that's in your local community, whether that's in your city, whether that's in your country, continent, the universe, how does that collective energy actually add up to create where we are in all the different kinds of situations that we are at present? And I know I've got many colleagues in the United States, and every time I speak with them, it's very disturbing to find the growing polarity of what's happening over there. So I'm very perturbed about where that polarity is, and it goes back to what we were saying before about the two different ends, AJ, around, do we want, and everybody believes in what they believe in for a reason. It's an experience that they've had, or it's an indoctrination that they've had, or however that's happened, it's an experience that has continued for a long time. How do we come to terms with those polarities that we're not exactly sure of? So where your energy flows is into the conversations that you have and the conversations that you instigate. And you've got to be brave and you've got to be courageous in order to have those conversations. And I encourage you to read widely. So, Brene Brown has a book on courage. Simon Sinek has a book on find your purpose. There's multiple, one of the most beautiful, simplest books I've read lately is by Eddie, who it's called The Happiest Man on Earth. And this man went through horrendous experiences in a concentration camp. If these people can find gold in their experiences, what is it that we need to learn from every single experience that we have? And they're the kind of lessons that we need to take, and they're the kind of conversations that we need to share. And everybody's not going to agree with you, and you have to actually go, it's okay for everybody not to agree with me, because we all have different perceptions, different experiences, and that's what leads us to where we are in this moment of time. Our different experiences and the different ways that we've been brought up and the different perceptions that we have, and thank goodness we're not all the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you look around at nature, I mean, the best innovator there is. Mother Nature just has oodles of variety and things that are complementary, and also predators and prey and all those sorts of things. Like in Mother Nature, we can only look at her and see how much diversity and inclusivity is there and valued. And I think a lot of what you've talked about is just about us tapping into that innateness. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Vanessa's just shared the link to the book, The Happiest Man on Earth, for those who are looking for it.
It is absolutely, it's a beautiful book. It's an easy read. Please buy it and support him. He's 101 years old, and he is just remarkable. And his whole, it's no wonder he's lived to 101, because his energy is so up and positive. And that's not to say that people that don't live that long have got downward energy. It depends on the lessons, it depends on what your spiritual beliefs are. But my belief is that we all come in to learn something. When that lesson's learnt, it's okay for us to check out. Or sometimes also we're here to help, to serve somebody else in a lesson or a particular experience that they're meant to have. And when that lesson has happened, it's okay for us to check out as well. So I actually am a believer in reincarnation, and I believe that we keep coming back until we get it right. So hopefully I'm doing okay this life.
And your soul's like, tick, I've done all these challenges this time. Next time I'll be a divine being, please.
I just want to be a dolphin or a whale for a little while, But, going back to what you said about nature, and if we relate that to technology, technology is actually often mimicking nature. So, if we have a look at some of the colonies, the ant colonies, the bee colonies, there's a certain method and a certain rhythm and a certain repetition in what that is. And that's what technology does. It takes that repetition and it turns it into tech, which means that we actually then don't have to keep repeating the task, which actually frees us up. So many years ago, before we had to do all these, manual tasks, and before we had to, put car doors on cars and, hammer in things, which now is becoming automated, we were much freer spirits back then. Then we went through the Industrial Revolution. Now we're going through, the fourth revolution, fifth revolution, fifth dimension, however you want to classify this period of time now. And it's technology that has the ability to free us. But we really are teetering on this, on this tightrope, if you like, right now. And I'm not sure. I certainly feel it, and I don't want to put that on to anybody else. But I feel like as a humanity, as a collective energy, it's like, I'm watching Iron Man at the moment, and it's that pressing of the energy. So which way, is the energy going to come together and elevate us, or is it actually going to push us down? So the fact that summits like this are happening, the fact that there's people like Natalie Isaacs out there talking about the climate, and there's, the fact that there's Eddie Yaku out there talking about, even though he can find a silver lining in every single experience, and if you can look at the glass as, actually that's another one of my favorite sayings too, the glass half empty, glass half full. I read this thing quite some time ago now that said, well, you people were arguing whether the glass was half empty or half full. I had an opportunity to drink it and fill it up again. And I think, isn't that a beautiful way of looking at it? So who cares whether it's half empty, half full? Enjoy what's going down at the time, because it's such a cleansing tonic, and then fill it up again. Like, it's endless. The supply is endless.
Which really comes back to the pen is in your hands. And that's one of the things, and one of the reasons we do these summits is to expand people's reality, to hear from different speakers. You're going to love certain bits more than others. We are going through a real shift in the world. And I think ancient wisdom for modern times, what you're talking about with humanity and traditional cultures and how we marry those with technology. Technology is just an extension of who we are. The more we absolutely start to believe and to create in that way, the better the world can be. And I think there's great documentaries coming out now about, looking after our soil. There's, David Attenborough's beautiful things about how we can save the planet from demise, from what we've been doing in using more, I guess, resources than we're replenishing. There's so many more ways that actually technology, through growing plants with a little bit of mist rather than using heaps of water, and hydroponics. And I've seen, great gardens that are built on top of what used to be concrete car yards. And so there's so much we can do now, and technology really is our partner in that. It is a tool for us to use, and it's only ever as good as bad or as we are. And like you're saying, it's only about when we have moonshot ideas and dream big, that who knows, we might miss and hit the stars, and isn't that a good thing? So
yeah. And I think also that what goes with it, so if you're brave enough to moonshot, you're brave enough to make a mistake, and mistakes are things that we've made from year dot. Just imagine if we had the first time we didn't manage to get up on our feet and walk, and ended up on our butts, and we went, oh, I can't do that, I'll never try that again. So I think we're doing a lot of talk in the innovation space around learning from each failure, a lot of talk. And I think it's now when you talk about something often enough, you then have the bravery to see it through. So I think that is the end result of all the conversation that we have. So we need to be able to have permission to make mistakes. And I just saw the comment that flash up then. Yes, technology comes from us, which is why it never ceases to surprise me or irritate me, depending on how high my energy is at the time. how people blame technology for something, or they blame the government for something. The government, the organization, the company is made up of people, and people are the ones who decide where things are going to go, not the government or the organization or the tech. It's not the tech that hacks into someone's account. It's the person behind the technology that does. And that's why we're also working very hard to go, hey, if you nurture humanity right at the source, if we give everybody the opportunity to, and it doesn't mean that everyone's going to take the opportunity, but if we have this egalitarian starting field, which we don't have if we look at it globally, we don't have that globally. So if we look at creating this egalitarian base, and then if you want to go off and work 70 hours a week and you want to use every single technological resource there is possible, go for it. If you want to live in nature and you want to work 10 hours a week and be rewarded for 10 hours a week work, and go for it, But at the moment, everybody doesn't have the luxury of making that decision, because some people don't have enough food to eat. Some people don't have shelter. Some people are suffering from abuse. Some people are living in war-torn areas. We need to nurture the whole of humanity. And, we have the ability for 5 minutes during early COVID period, you saw the globe come together. You saw people singing to each other on balconies. You saw all this amazing, there was one neighborhood in Italy, and there was an opera singer and a violinist and a cellist and everybody else was clapping, and these guys, it was a community project. It was a community concert that was going on from balconies. How beautiful is that? We saw what can happen, the beauty that can happen when humanity gets together. We've seen many examples of how we get together, and my co-CEO at SU, Lisa, often puts up the photo of Earthrise, and it was the first photo taken from outer space of the Earth, and it was the first family photo, if you like, that we had, because everybody on planet Earth was encapsulated in this beautiful globe that was planet Earth, and we were one. And, if you have a look at all those sci-fi movies where we're invaded by aliens, everybody gets together and everyone works for the common good of the whole planet. Wouldn't it be great if we could do that without the threat of being attacked by aliens? And who's to say that aliens are going to attack us? If I was an alien out there looking at us right now, I'd be going, stay away from those people.
So I'd love to leave it there, because I'm sorry we've come up to time. Lots of people have been putting in comments saying, great talk, no mistakes, only lessons. And I think, that's that whole concept of, there's not mistakes, there's just missteps or just opportunities to learn and grow and do more. And I think all research shows that the companies that do the best and are the most sustainable, people who have the most satisfied lives, are the people who have made the most mistakes and who have tried the most. So it's up to us to just keep trying, to keep humanivating, to keep having moonshot ideas, and to not squash that creativity and squash that innovation, and to not let the world get us down. It's so important that we keep striving to just do better, be better for ourselves, and then that naturally has a ripple effect for others. So thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom, your enthusiasm, which never wanes. And let me tell you, this woman emails you at 2 a.m. because I'm like, she never sleeps. She's always humanivating. She must have some technology chip in her that allows her to not sleep and to stay awake. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with all of us. And for people who want to continue to humanivate themselves, and maybe are thinking about, what are some of the ways I could hack myself and to be continually innovative, then make sure you join us for the Superhuman experience. Michelle and I love running this program because it's all about the stretch. It's all about moonshot ideas. It's all about how can people go from where they are now to the next level. And a lot of it is about coming home to themselves and finding alignment. So we start on the 3rd of May, very, very soon, only in a couple of weeks. And it's available right now for $250 off the normal price. Bargain, let me tell you, because it's not just that you learn from Michelle and I and the content that we provide, it is the richness and the wisdom of the circle of good people. It's kind of like sitting around a campfire. You're going to be working with people all around the world who, like you, want to raise their consciousness. So thank you for your bit today, Christina, in helping us have a little lift and a rise. It's been splendid. It's been humanivatingly awesome. I don't know how to make that into a word, but I tried. And
I think that was perfect. It's perfect.
Humanivationness. I don't know. Stay tuned, because very next coming up is also another dear friend of ours, which is Shoshona. She is going to spellbind you. This is someone else who really knows how to combine ancient wisdom for modern life. Thank you, everyone, once again. See you all in a couple of minutes for Wendy Shoshona. Bye.
Thanks, AJ and Michelle.